Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Snook with section 8.3 and our topic today is trigonometry. And the way you can remember this is trig, so tri is 3, and then gon for sides, so 3-sided or triangle, and then metry is to measure. So trigonometry is the study of measuring triangles. And specifically, we can relate the side lengths to the angles in the triangle. And before now, lengths were lengths and angles were angles, and they really had nothing to do with each other. But in trigonometry, we're going to be able to use angles to calculate sides and sides to calculate angles. The first thing to do is to learn about 3 of the ratios in trigonometry, and they are sine, S-I-N-E, cosine, C-O-S-I-N-E, and tangent. Now we abbreviate sine, S-I-N, and then cosine is C-O-S, and tangent is T-A-N. And these ratios work in right triangles. So right here I have a right triangle, triangle ABC. And the first thing we're going to do is learn how to write these ratios. So starting with angle A, sine means the ratio of the opposite leg to the hypotenuse. So from angle A, I go across to the opposite side of the triangle, and then little a is the opposite. Little c is opposite the right angle, so that's your hypotenuse. And then little b touches angle A, so that's adjacent. So with that information, I can write the ratios for angle A. The sine of angle A is opposite over hypotenuse, so in this picture I would just write A over C. Cosine of angle A, that's adjacent over the hypotenuse, or B over C. Tangent of angle A is going to be your opposite or your adjacent, so A over B. Now I'm going to play the same game, but this time I'm going from angle B. So the length of C, that is still your hypotenuse. That doesn't change, but angle B, go opposite the triangle, and little b is now opposite. Little a touches angle B, so that's now adjacent. So when I do sine of angle B, okay, so now sine of angle B, opposite over hypotenuse, so this time it's B over C. Cosine this time, adjacent over hypotenuse, is A over C. And then the tangent from angle B is opposite over adjacent, which is B over A. Now, easy way to remember this is SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. And that helps you remember how to set up these ratios. So, SOH stands for sine is opposite, O for opposite, H for hypotenuse, so that means opposite over hypotenuse. Ka, C is cosine, A is adjacent, H is hypotenuse. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. TOA, T is tangent, O is opposite, and then A is adjacent, so you're going to do opposite over adjacent. So let's do a problem where we figure out these ratios, and we're going to use some numbers. Let's put some numbers in here. So I'm going to start with angle A, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label the 3 sides of this triangle. So I go across the triangle, so this little 5 over here, that's opposite. Touching A is the 12, that's adjacent. 13 is opposite the right angle, so that's your hypotenuse. And then when I go to write these ratios, sine opposite over hypotenuse would be 5 over 13. So that's what I mean by writing a ratio. You're writing a fraction between two numbers. Cosine, 12 over 13. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, so you get 5 over 12. Now let's do them from angle B this time. 13 is still the hypotenuse. It doesn't change. Sorry, not angle B, angle C. So opposite of angle C is 12. Adjacent to angle C is the 5. So now when I go to write sine of C, opposite is 12, hypotenuse is 13, so 12 over 13. Cosine, I'm going to do adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's 5 over 13. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, 12 over 5. So when I ask you to write the ratios, this is what I'm looking for. Now we're going to apply these ratios. I told you at the start of the video we could figure out lengths from angles. So what we're going to do is we're going to start solving some triangles. We're going to find missing sides using the trig ratios. This is super important. Make sure your calculator is in degree mode. If your calculator is not, what happens is your answers will be different from mine. Here's how you test your calculator for degree mode. Punch in tangent of 45. You should get 1. Or on your calculator, look at the screen. So I'm going to show mine. And at the top, it says degree. It's the, let me see if I can use my finger. So right there, that's degree mode. So make sure you're in degree mode. And then the process we're going to use is a simple little process. I'm going to write down the steps off to the side, and then we'll solve the problem. So your first step is to label. So you're going to label your opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So on number 1, I am at angle 28. Over here is opposite. Touching the 28 is the adjacent, and the 19 is the hypotenuse. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to choose your trig ratio. And at the top of your paper, I want you to write this on every paper. So, S-O-H, ka, C-A-H, toa, T-O-A. So at the top of your paper every time, so, ka, and toa. So first, label the triangle. Second, choose your trig function. You're going to choose sine, cosine, or tangent. And then the third thing is you're going to write your equation. And the fourth is to solve. You will need your calculator for this. So this whole process that we're going through is solely to figure out what to punch into the calculator. That's all we're doing. So number 1, I have labeled my sides. And I am given the hypotenuse, the angle, and I'm asked to solve for x, which is opposite. So I don't even need to know that that side's adjacent. I'm going to choose my trig function. I have opposite and hypotenuse. That is sine. So opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm going to say that the sine of 28 equals, your opposite is x, your hypotenuse is 19. So I chose my trig, I've written my equation. Now all I have to do is solve for x. Multiply both sides by 19, and I'm going to get x equals 19 times the sine of 28. This is what I punch into my calculator. 19 times sine of 28. So that's all I did. I just punched that in, hit enter, and I get a number with lots of decimals. This is okay. Trig numbers often have lots of decimals. I'm asked to round to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to round my answer to 8.9. Okay, number 2. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label. So here's my angle 41. X is opposite. And then 32 is adjacent. So this time I have opposite and adjacent. That's TOA. So I'm going to choose tangent. Tangent of 41 is going to equal x over 32. Multiply both sides by 32. X equals 32 times the tangent of 41. And then just punch that in my calculator. 32 times tangent of 41. That's all I'm putting in. And then rounding, I get 27.8. Okay, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do number 3. I've got 21 degrees. X is adjacent. The 26 is the hypotenuse. So now I've got adjacent and hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm choosing cosine. 21 degrees equals adjacent, which is x, over hypotenuse, which is 26. Multiply both sides by the 26. X equals 26 cosine of 21. Punch that in your calculator. 24.3. Okay, now I'm going to do a different kind of problem. I'm going to do number 6. Check it out, see what's different. This time the x is the hypotenuse. And I have 43 degrees as the angle. 36 is touching the 43, so this is adjacent. I'm going to follow the same procedure. So I've chosen cosine. Writing my equation, cosine is 36 over x. X is now in the denominator. When I multiply both sides by x, here's what happens. You get x times the cosine of 43 equals 36. Now I'm going to divide both sides by cosine of 43. Now that is really just a number. I'll show you. So cosine 43 is a big, long, gnarly decimal. It is just a number. And that number is being multiplied by x. So I have to divide by that number to get x by itself. So x equals 36 over the cosine of 43. Just punch that into your calculator. 36 divided by cosine of 43, I get 49.2. And that's my answer. Okay, a lot of times in trigonometry we'll give you word problems, and it really helps to draw a picture. So I'm going to do number 9. We have Jake leaned a 12-foot ladder against his house. So I'm going to draw the house. Here's Jake's house. This is my artist's impression of a house. Here's a chimney. There you go. Here's his front door. Here's a window. There's another window. Okay. Here's the ladder. Jake leaned it up against the house, so it looks like that. It says the ladder is 12 feet long. So that's 12 feet long. The angle formed by the ladder and the ground is 68 degrees. So this is 68 degrees. How far from the base of the house did he place the ladder? So that's x down there. All right, I have drawn my picture, and part of my picture is this triangle. And I'm going to highlight the triangle. That is a right triangle. So I can use trigonometry to solve for x. I have the 68 degrees. X is touching 68, so I choose cosine. And the 12 feet is the hypotenuse, so I have an adjacent and hypotenuse. That's why I chose cosine. So cosine of 68 is going to equal adjacent over hypotenuse, or x over 12. So draw your picture, choose your trig function, write your equation. Now I'm on to my next step. I'm going to solve the equation. Multiply both sides by 12 to get x by itself. X equals 12 cosine of 68. Punch that in my calculator. And I got 4.5 feet. All right, now there's another type of trig problem we can do, and that uses inverse of the trig ratios. And that's where you're finding missing angles. So anytime I'm trying to find an angle, I have to use the inverse of the trig function. And those are on your calculator. You have to push the second button, and then you push the trig function. And that'll put in the inverse. Inverse simply means doing the reverse. So up until now, we would put in an angle and then be able to calculate side lengths. Now we're going to go the other way. We're putting in side lengths, and we're going to calculate an angle. And I'm going to show you how we do this. Follow the same steps right until the very end. So the first thing I'm going to do is label my triangle. I'm going to do number 1. 15 is across. Well, 15 is across, so this is opposite. 24 is your hypotenuse. So therefore, using SOHCAHTOA, and please write SOHCAHTOA on your papers every time. It will really help you. TOA with a T. Okay, so I have opposite and the hypotenuse, so I'm going to choose sine. So sine. Now this time I don't know what the angle is, so I'm just going to put in sine of x. Opposite over hypotenuse is 15 over 24. So I wrote my equation. Now I need to solve for x. I do not divide by sine because x is not being multiplied here. Okay, so you're not going to divide by sine. That doesn't work. What you're going to do is inverse the sign. So I'm going to take the inverse sign of both sides. So the inverse sign of the sine of x is going to equal the inverse sign of 15 over 24. I have to inverse sign both sides. This is an equation. What I do on one side, I have to do on the other. Now, when I inverse the sign of a sign, that means it undoes itself, so that x comes out of all of that. So I get x equals. My other side is inverse sine of 15 over 24. Okay. So now I grab my calculator. This is ready to go in the calculator. I'm going to push the second and then the sine button. That gives me inverse sine. I'm going to put in 15 over 24. So what I've entered in my calculator is exactly what I have written down here. I press my enter button and my answer is 38.68. I'm going to round this. So x equals 38.6 degrees. That's it for today's lesson, everybody. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.